Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Carlton Willis, and I'm known as God's Grin Gal. Today, we are continuing our series about the Grin Gal's Guide to Wellbeing, and our topic for today is getting sidetracked. I have a whole chapter about it in the book, so I recommend you go and read it there because you'll get a lot more details, plus some questions to help you process some of the Bible verses that I'll be reading today. And I just want to encourage you because every person I talk to, no matter what I'm coaching them through, whether it's for life coaching or writing or some of the other topics we cover, priorities, growing in their faith, and well-being, they all deal with the struggle of getting sidetracked. And they ask me, how can I be so intentional with getting through all my goals and pursuing the things that I believe God has placed on my heart? And it's funny, when I read this chapter, I did a word search for the word focus, and that word appeared 11 times in just this short chapter. So I think focus has a lot to do with it. So if you need to get away right now and just need this one idea for how to deal with being sidetracked, it has to do with your focus. So let's keep that in mind as I read the rest of our script for today. It's just a portion of our chapter, so be sure if you have the book to go ahead and read the rest of the chapter and also do the journal questions so that you can process what we're talking about. It truly is one thing to hear it and another thing to put it into practice. And it's a struggle for all of us. Every time I read this chapter and the other chapters in the book, there's something that I have to redo about my own well-being journey to stay on track. And that's what I want for you all too. Proverbs 4:27 says, "Don't get sidetracked. Keep your feet from following evil." We think of evil as the bad sins, but we need to evaluate anything that keeps us from God's best for our lives. Have you asked for God to show you what his best is for your life? Obviously, he's always the best, but it's what we do with his presence in our lives that helps us have the best life that's possible. I'm not talking about the best life like we hear about all over when it comes to self-focus and self-success. It's about what's best for God's kingdom. And that's what's best for us as individuals too. Here's a tip. When we point our feet and our focus, that helps us not get sidetracked. So point your feet to where you want the focus to be. It's easy to get sidetracked, what I call slide tracked, and we backslide, we get off track, or we get distracted. The key to deal with it is to identify what your priorities are based on God's word and how his spirit leads in your life. Because you know what? Everything else is secondary compared to that. Why is it we tend to give the wrong things our best focus and our best energy, cutting short the time we can address what really matters? That's pretty common with humanity in general, and with me in particular. Life is full of distractions. We easily get sidetracked by whatever grabs our attention. Not only do we chase after things that have less value, but we procrastinate addressing the primary focus that God does have in our lives. That's that word focus again. So I asked some friends what caused them to get sidetracked and with their well-being goals and other goals in life. And it's funny because I noticed a theme happen, and there were just a few things that if we could get a handle on these, we could really stay in focus and living out our intentions. So maybe you'll relate to these responses. One was working. I'm a workaholic and have a hard time stopping enough to tend to my personal well-being. Does that sound like you? Another one is laziness, which is sort of the opposite. I just don't have the want to that it takes. My energy and mental focus are shot. Then there's busyness. I'm overcommitted as it is, and I just can't add one more thing, even if it means sacrificing my own well-being. I hope that that's not where you're at, because when you sacrifice your own well-being, it really is a downward spiral of having some pretty big problems surface. And then the last one is poor planning. I'm really disorganized when it comes to making well-being a priority. Making plans seems like work. And then that goes back to the, I don't have the want to that it takes. Do you recognize yourself in any of these reasons why it's easy to get sidetracked? So here's a challenge for you. Let yourself get sidetracked by the things that are good for you instead of the things that take you further away from your well-being. Why is it we allow the wrong things to sidetrack us? Let's use our well-being as a distraction from those negative things. And that's what I've been doing. I've had some serious things happen this year. And the one thing that's in my control is my choices for my well-being. And so I spend a little extra time with meal planning because I can control that. I spend a little extra time with exercise. That's something I can control. So I allow the things that are good for well-being to be my distractions from the things I don't have control over anyway, like worrying about a new diagnosis or a new treatment or a new symptom or a new stress in my life. See, those things I can't control, but I can control what is my well-being journey. What are my intentions for that? Here are some Bible verses to get you thinking about it more. Mark 6:31. Then Jesus said, let's go off by ourselves to a quiet place and rest a while. He said this because there were so many people coming and going that Jesus and his apostles didn't even have time to eat. I have to laugh at that last part, not having time to eat. I seem to have managed just fine remembering to eat. But have you ever given yourself a timeout when life gets too stressful or you feel too scattered? How does that help you focus on the main thing? I have been, as my intentional +1 that I'm doing right now, I'm in a +1 program where each week I set a new intention and I do the ones from the prior week. So right now we're on week 9 of this 10-day challenge. And my focus for this week that I added, my +1, was to add in self-care and soul care every single day, whether it's a little thing or a big thing. Every day I have to make time for that. And one way I'm doing that is to remove one expectation from my list every day. I make my list in the morning, all the to-dos for the day. I make sure I do the things I'm committed to do. I never want to let down on those obligations. But then I look over the list. What is one thing I can remove to allow more margin, more white space, so that I can take care of that soul care? So that's what I've been doing. Just like Jesus took the apostles and they went away for a while. They took a time out. They made sure that they had time to eat. They made sure they had time to rest, to have some breathing room in between conversations with other people. We all need to do that. Jesus prescribed a quiet place and rest. Does that come easy to you? Do you crave it? Do you make it a point to get it despite how busy you are? Yesterday, I had some more medical news that I wasn't quite prepared for. I don't have all the answers to it yet, so I won't share it until I do. But my niece, Jessica, and thank you, Jess, for writing me yesterday. You wrote such a great note, and in it, you said that you prayed that God would help me have rest and peace last night. And I found it so funny because when I went to bed, I fell asleep really well. And this morning Fitbit said I fell asleep at 11:50, and at 11:53, I was already in deep sleep. If you know me very well, you know I don't get a lot of deep sleep every night. And to be able to fall into a deep sleep within 3 minutes, that had to be because Jessica prayed that I would have rest and peace. So that is really important, to have that quiet place and rest. Another verse, Ephesians 5, a passage 11 through 16 from the Message paraphrase, says this: don't waste your time on useless work, mere busy work, the barren pursuits of darkness. Expose these things for the sham that they are. You think of some of your work as a sham, meaning that it's useless. It's a scandal when people waste their lives on things they must do in the darkness where no one will see. Rip the cover off those frauds and see how attractive they look in the light of Christ. Wake up from your sleep, climb out of your coffins. Christ will show you the light. So watch your step, use your head, make the most of every chance you get. These are desperate times. What is sidetracking you from what God wants you to do? How do you make the most of every chance you get? Galatians 5, 7 through 8 says, you are running the race so well. Who has held you back from following the truth? It certainly isn't God, for he is the one who called you to freedom. I've heard people say, I was doing so well with my well-being journey, but then you fill in the blank, started to hold me back from making progress. I don't know how to get back on track. Well, how do we get back on track? We figure out where we got off track and start over right there. What do you think God would have you do to avoid getting sidetracked or to remedy it when it happens? In Galatians 1:10, we're warned about the distractions of being people pleasers. A lot of people I talk to say they're sidetracked because they don't want to let anyone else down. The verse says, obviously, I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant. We are here to please one person, and that is God. But oh my goodness, we complicate it so much because we don't want to let anyone else down. So whose approval are you trying to win? It's hard to resist, isn't it? I don't like to let people down. I have to reverse out of that way of thinking and realize the real prize goes to the one who wants to please God alone. So even people pleasing, that can be the thing that gets us sidetracked from what really matters. So here are a few tips to help you avoid being sidetracked. Number one is to fix your focus on God's lead. In Proverbs 4:25 in the Amplified, it says, let your eyes look right on with fixed purpose. That's what I mean about that focus, that intention. And let your gaze be straight before you instead of looking to the left, to the right, all around, so distracted. We know people with attention deficit that just have a hard time with that focus. Well, even those of us who don't have attention deficit, we do have a problem with getting sidetracked. So fix our focus on God's lead straight ahead. And two, pray for God's help when stressed. Psalm 55:2 says, please listen to and answer me, for I am overwhelmed by my troubles. Do you feel that way? Go ahead and tell God that right now. Please listen and answer me, for I am overwhelmed by my troubles. Mark 1:35 says, make it a priority to have quiet time with God. In that verse, it says, before daybreak the next morning, Jesus got up and went out to an isolated place to pray. I know I need isolation every single day. I love pouring into people and investing some words and wisdom in them and receiving what they have for my life as well. But I also need that time alone, time to refresh with God, to hear his voice, and to just have that silence even for a while. Here's some ways to prevent being sidetracked from well-being priorities, or really any priority. The first thing is accountability. Tell a friend your well-being plan and ask her to hold you to it. Decide in advance how many details to share. Create a plan that involves a balance of next steps for well-being that includes care for the body, soul, and spirit. I do a lot of accountability, even on social media, because when I say I have an intention, I don't want to miss that intention unless God leads me in a different direction. So that accountability is really helpful. Number two is easy access exercise. A lot of people say they have gotten sidetracked from having fitness in their lives. So make it easy on yourselves. Find something to do that you can do without needing any prep time. Maybe set out your workout clothes the night before, get into them first thing if you can work out that morning. Maybe you don't need special workout gear. What about grabbing a walk or just getting up and doing something? Just moving will help you. Third thing is checklists and habit trackers. You will do your best when you have a specific plan. Some are motivated by tracking lists and checking off accomplishments. I'm the kind that even if I didn't have it on the list, if I added it to the list, I have to write it there so I can enjoy that check mark. Maybe you're like that too. If you respond to rewards, give yourself a reward for completing a monthly chart. Make it something that supports your well-being goals rather than derailing them. I love Lily's sugar-free chocolate. It is my reward. It has really small squares on the bar, and just one or two of those squares is enough to make me totally happy. So sometimes I use that as a reward. Here's some homework for you. Choose one plan at a time and dive in. Select from, are you going to use a meal planner, a food tracker, a fitness plan, a habit tracker? What are you going to use to help you with your plan? Choose one and dive in. Don't get so diversified that you overwhelm yourself. Number two, keep your priorities in front of you. Have a motivational inspirational vision board or journal. Do something so that your goals are there. I've been doing Project 60 all this year. I turn 60 next month now, and I'm looking forward to giving myself the gift of well-being because I've made it a priority all year long. Number 3, what struggles have you had this week? That's part of your homework, to face those struggles, admit them, evaluate why they happen, and then brainstorm what you could do to prevent or overcome them moving forward so that you can set some realistic goals for your next week. So here's your health check for this time. For your body, why am I getting sidetracked from my goals for physical well-being? Ask yourself that, because we're talking about being sidetracked and it affects us in body, soul, and spirit. And then for your soul, how is my soul affected when I get sidetracked? Maybe it's just not enough white space or margin because you've overcommitted. And then spirit, when I'm sidetracked, how will my spirit commune with God and get me back on track? That's really how we quit being sidetracked, is having that time with God and asking Him to help us. And with His help, Him doing that heavy lifting, we can get back on track. So where are you off track this week? We all have something. There's no shame in that, okay? But it's how long we let ourselves stay off track and what we do to try to reverse it and get back on track. That's where it really matters. So I'm here for you. And if I can help you in any way, please let me know, because truly we are in this together. We are not meant to do it alone. I hope you have a good week. Talk to you soon.